Life Lessons by Lorna Wood. Outside, things were always unpredictable. An expensive sports car might appear on the driveway, or overnight a rainforest hung with lush tropical fruits would have grown right up to the door, only to give way the next day to frozen tundra stretching away to the horizon. Strange people, too, came to the doors, peered in the windows, or lounged indolently on the patio, when there was a patio. Celebrities with brilliant smiles, bishops and miters, the woman's first-grade teacher, Girl Scouts who rang the bell and tried to sell her insurance. She tried to stick with the familiar when she went out, but found this unreliable. Roads she knew like the back of her hand developed strange turnings, were washed away by flash floods, or took her to bad neighborhoods or places from her childhood that couldn't possibly exist anymore. Even old friends could not be trusted. They aged or sickened, laughed, cried, or raged for no reason, turned their backs on her or clung desperately. One day she stopped to pet the cat, and he flew away. Inside, all was orderly. Her husband came home at the same time every day, even on days that had no time. Her children followed a set routine and celebrated the same birthdays every year. She read the same books and turned the same pages over and over again. The cat was appalled by the very idea of flight. The situation was intolerable. She complained to the authorities. At first there was no response. Then she was fined for the cat. No flying. Gradually, things began to change. She thinks it was the insurance she bought in desperation from a Girl Scout, or possibly that time one of the bishops blessed her. Her husband thinks it was the smart screen he brought home and put in front of the window. The authorities point to ordinances against airborne mammals, excluding bats. Whatever the cause, things became easier. She went to work, to the grocery store, to visit friends or the children's schools without incident. Celebrities confined themselves to the smart screen. Religious authorities kept a respectful distance. Girl Scouts sold only cookies. The cat only climbed trees. Inside, books and her husband became more interesting. The children grew up and went off, bringing back their own fantastic tales, exotic cars, and fruits. She has come to terms with the cycle, and even with her doctor's idea that one day all will again be change and confusion, but this time inside and out, and dinner, as if on the smart screen. Still, when she is alone with the cat, she searches his eyes and wonders if one day he might teach her to fly. Hello there, and welcome to No Extra Words, the Flash Fiction Podcast. My name is Kris Baker-Dersch. I'm your producer and editor. I thought today for my narration talking points, I would walk through how I build an episode, using this episode 10, Just Out of Reach, as an example. Stories get submitted, and Life Lessons was the one that I read first for this episode. Knew it had to have a home on the podcast, placed it in this episode without really knowing what was going with it. And when I'm designing episodes, it looks like a puzzle. I have episode date, release dates laid out, and then over to the side, 1 or 2 or 3 stories that are currently placed in an episode, and I just keep moving things around as submissions come in. So I knew Life Lessons was there. I saw Trivia, which is the story coming up next, and Trivia probably couldn't be more different than Life Lessons if it tried. Life Lessons is whimsical, it's fantastical. Trivia is realistic fiction. So it is most definitely a made-up story, but this woman could exist. She could be real. She could live somewhere. And she wants something. She wants recognition, she wants normalcy, she wants control, whereas the main character in Life Lessons also has a deep-seated longing, maybe longing for something she didn't know she would miss. So I knew those two stories had to live together, but they needed something to tie them together. So here they are sitting on my spreadsheet. I'm a nerd like that. Waiting for a third story because they're short and I knew they needed a third story. And along comes Flight of Desire. And Flight of Desire has this quirky main character at its center, but she's not the one who has the longing. There's another character in there that longs to be something, longs to have something, longs to understand something. And immediately I knew these 3 stories had to live together. So different premises, different everything, but a beautiful tie to them. So I placed them together in this episode. I'm recording them. I'm getting ready to put everything together. And I thought, what in the world do I call this thing? Well, what's the through line? What is the thing these stories have in common? And it's that longing. It's that something that's just out of reach. Bingo, just out of reach. So that is episode 10, just out of reach. And that's what I do. That's how I put these episodes together. The only way that's possible is because we're getting fantastic submissions. The quality of writing that I'm seeing coming into the podcast these days, it's no exaggeration to say it blows me away. So because this is episode 10, I looked at the numbers, how many stories we've aired, how many submissions we've gotten, how many downloads. And initially when I first started recording, I thought, I'm going to tell the listeners all that. And then I thought, only a small percentage of you even care. So I'm going to get to the rest of the writing, trivia, and then Flight of Desire. And for anyone who's interested, I'm going to put a little footnote in the show notes today and talk a little bit more about the numbers, no extra words by the numbers, in case anyone out there is a math nerd like I am. Hope you have a great week. We're going to go spooky and scary next week, so tune in for episode 11 of No Extra Words. In the meantime, please enjoy these 2 stories. Trivia by Madeline Fogelsong. The public access trivia game show host tells me backstage that he'll sex me up real smart. And I say okay, because I want to beat Mary Lou McCartney, who's dressed like a sunflower. I want my ex-husband and his new wife with the face that looks like a fingernail, and all those stupid women I worked with at the party supply store, and Mr. Lemming, who caught me cheating on a math test in 7th grade, and Lenny, my old boss at the restaurant, who used to sneak his hand up my backside and down my backside, and Sally, my neighbor, who's always calling the cops on my dogs Sunny and Poo Poo, even though they've never done anything at all to her. I want them all to feel so bad when I don't say thank you to any one of them when I win $500 and a year's supply of ham and lettuce and bread and ice cream and milk from the grocery store. I'm only going to say thank you to Sunny and Poo Poo when I win. So I say yes to that game show host offer of smart sexing because I want to win. But then the taping starts, and that game show host keeps asking questions I don't know the answers to. A question about penguins, and a question about clouds, and a question about the climate of some place I've never been and won't ever go. He doesn't ask any questions about how you can tell when your husband of 15 years is cheating on you with a woman whose face looks like a fingernail, or how to empty a joint bank account and burn all of his clothes in the front yard before he gets back from a trip to Albuquerque with fingernail face. He doesn't ask how to steal sexy nurse costumes and sexy policewoman costumes and sexy devil costumes from the stockroom of a party supply store to sell on the street without ever getting caught. He doesn't ask how to go on living with one kidney, and pain in your knees, and pain in your back, and pain in your neck, and pain in your little pinky toe. The game show host asks questions about dinosaurs, and about some big superstar singer, and Mary Lou McCartney answers all his questions right. There aren't any questions about how to clean up and go on living after the river floods and flows all through your house, leaving nothing unmuddied and unsoiled. The game show host doesn't ask one question I know the answer to, and I lose to Marianne McCartney, and I realize the public access trivia game show host really isn't that smart, even if he thinks he is. Flight of Desire by Diane Payne. He grabs a beer, pulls his lawn chair up next to the fence, and watches his neighbor try to attract hummingbirds. He keeps his distance, hoping she won't notice him, and tries to look like he's grading biology exams. She sits in the shade, drinking cheap, sweet wine from the bottle, then pours a little on her extended tongue, balances her head just so, trying to keep the wine centered on her curled-up tongue. Lips are smeared bright red. He wonders why she doesn't pull in her tongue and just keep her mouth open, hoping the hummingbird will land on her lips, seeking sweet nectar from the depths of her mouth. The first time he saw her outside, tongue extended, head leaned back, he ran over to her yard, fearing she had had a stroke. She's probably 60. He's 30. She seems to be of stroke age. I was so damn close, she moaned when he reached for her shoulders. He didn't know what to say, but he knew what those words usually meant. He assumed she did have a stroke and was confused. He never imagined a stroke being anything remotely similar to an orgasm. Biology is his life, yet not once did he consider this possibility. It's no wonder he teaches high school students in a rural town. He always lacked the necessary curiosity to excel in this field. But not this woman. She is the epitome of discipline, stamina, curiosity. Did you see how close that bird was to me? He didn't even see a bird. So unobservant. He saw his neighbor with a bottle of wine on the ground next to her chair, tongue extended, head thrown back abnormally, and just assumed she was dead. I've been out here 2 hours trying to get a hummingbird to eat from my tongue. But why? He asked. She looked confused. She automatically assumed he'd instinctively understand her attraction to feeding a hummingbird from her tongue. Maybe if you didn't have so many feeders in your yard, the birds would come to your tongue, he suggested. She sighed. He walked back home. At night he'd wake thinking about her extended tongue. In the morning he'd extend his tongue by the mirror. His tongue was pale, almost white. Her tongue was stained red from wine. He wondered if she'd attract a hummingbird by placing chunks of red popsicle on her tongue. Then the endless images of Miley Cyrus's tongue started merging with his neighbor's tongue, waking him at night. He started paying attention to his students' lips, noticing the girls with bright red gloss waiting for a glimpse of their tongues, losing track of what he was trying to teach. He gets up from his chair and stands closer to the fence, watching 2 hummingbirds circle her head. She stiffens, holding her breath. One hummingbird does a nosedive toward her lips, but quickly turns away. She doesn't even flinch. The other bird soars next to her nose. The birds circle her face. He is transfixed by their choreography, their flight of desire. For one brief moment a bird lands on her tongue. Exhilarated, she gets up and laughs loudly. She takes a swig of the cheap wine, sits back down, and weeps. He stands by the fence and watches the 2 birds drink nectar from a feeder just feet away from the weeping neighbor.